Meaningful content dies with silent views. Your subscription, like, comment, and share help the video reach more people.
I was reading a few days ago in the book The Ottoman Empire by the American historian Donald Quattert. Donald Quattert is one of the fair historians of the Ottoman Empire, very defensive of the Ottoman Empire. A writer in this book said that the Ottoman Empire was one of the countries that greatly influenced the course of history, and that it meant positive effects on a large number of peoples in the world. Then he gave an example of this influence. He said, "We will never forget, the Ottoman Empire was the one that introduced coffee to the world, the whole world. Now I drink coffee, every country in its own way. East or West, or any place imaginable." The truth is, I'm why. I saw the example of the one he set. At a glance, I felt that he was being sarcastic. I mean, what is the coffee? It means to me what the Ottoman Empire did, I mean, he did not talk about the influence of the Ottoman Empire in religion, for example. He did not talk about the influence of the Ottoman Empire in politics, the influence of the Ottoman Empire in the economy, meaning the huge things that move the states, just talking about a recreational drink. I mean, it's not even a treatment like a recreational drink for coffee. Then as soon as I thought about it, I found that the man who is Donald Quattert is in fact a thinking man. I mean, because coffee or similar matters of life among people are furnishing peoples, it means an influence in the social movement of peoples. And this is more powerful than political and military influence. Indeed, it is an influence that deeply penetrates lives, to the extent that people began to imitate the Ottoman Empire, even though the people were the enemies of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, he is the one who talks about the spread of coffee in Europe. All of Europe was hostile to the Ottoman Empire in various ways, meaning its countries are Europe. There is no country that has ever befriended the Ottoman Empire. In the period, the Ottoman Empire ruled Eastern Europe for several centuries, 3 or 4 centuries. The Ottoman Empire typified 6 centuries, but it was not all. Within Europe, but in part of its history in Europe, I mean, I say like 5 or 4 centuries, its negative impact on European politics and economy is very, very large. And therefore, it was expected that these peoples would be alienated. From the Ottoman Empire, you do not imitate it, but the reality we have seen is otherwise. We have seen that people's states imitate the Ottoman Empire, and this is what the defeated always does towards the victor. And when you meet the peoples imitate peoples that are hostile to them or countries that are hostile to them, I know this is a very great psychological defeat. It has reached the point because I'm imitating the man or country that fought me and defeated me in several ways. Sights, I thought of this, the truth when I saw it. Seasonal theme in the Netherlands. Tulip season peaks in the Netherlands during January. Every year, and it continues until the month of April, for about 3 or 4 continuous months, and tulips in the Netherlands are very, very important. The relationship of childbirth to our story, but I want to draw your attention to the fact that in the Netherlands, this is a very big issue. The Netherlands annually produces from 2 to 3 billion bulbs. Although this trip is very expensive in appearance, especially some types of it still have rare colors, which are colors, romantic colors, light colors. Until now, they also made black from it by hybridization, meaning, and it is not explicit black, it means purple or very dark purple, close to black, so that the colors match the romantic gifts, Valentine's Day, etc., relations between peoples. Strong big theme. This issue of midwifery is very influential in the Dutch economy and is very, very old in the Netherlands. There is something called National Day, which is the 3rd Saturday of every January. This remains National Dragon Day. Crowds of the Dutch people go out to pick flowers. On this day, they have certain gardens from which they pick flowers for free. And of course it is issued, as we said, tulips from different countries of the world. In history, the Netherlands is carried on close. These are very big topics and interesting topics. And strange, I mean, they don't have a thing called it. Juli men. Gnontioli means the 16th or 17th century in the Netherlands. There was a very high price of tulips, to the point that one tulip, one flower, could be bought for 1,000 florins. The Dutch currency, 1,000 florins. Even though the annual income per capita is most, people mean how much 150 florins to compare between
Annual income per capita 150.
one flower is worth 1,000 florins. Some people during the period of Jalib Minya date, or the tulip madness, used to destroy houses and lands by birth. This means that one sells his house and buys the phenomenon of tulips or tulip flowers, as well as lands. So you can see the issue was influential, and it entered the stock market and affected the economy of several countries in Europe as a result of the rise. The price of the Jolin is very striking for what the Queen of the Netherlands is. What world war? The second occupied her country, Germany, occupied the Netherlands in World War II. The Queen fled to Canada. And until the war ends, so that you don't kill the Queen. When the Netherlands left, the Dutch government was pregnant. She was leaving, and her name Julia was pregnant. When she went to Canada, I gave her a piece of land as a gift from Canada to me, to the Dutch Queen, so that her child would be born there, and her mother would remain on Dutch land, mine to her. After the war ended, and the Queen returned to the Netherlands, she saw that this was a noble position on the part of the Canadian government and helped it. What gift did you give her? 100,000. A delivery from Atulaibe is the most expensive thing owned by the Netherlands, so it cost them 100,000. Every year since the time of World War II until now, every year the Netherlands has sent a gift of tulips to Canada, meaning in recognition of the favor it provided during World War II by sheltering the Queen of the Netherlands. All of this tells us the value of childbirth in the history of the Netherlands. Where did the tulip come to the Netherlands? He came to the Netherlands from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is the country that published 2000 in Europe. It was the imported quantities from Central Asia, with the Turks who came from Central Asia, and they lived in Anatolia. They lived in Istanbul, and after that it spread to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was very interested in the topic of what it wanted. These were certain periods in its time, to the point that in the early 18th century, specifically between 1700 and 1730, during the reign of Sultan Ahmed III, there was also a great boom, very high in prices and spread widely. They call this period, which is the 10th year of the reign of the reign. In Ottoman history, there was a period called the tulip or tulid period. This era was a period in which adults competed, from the first Sultan Ahmed III to the prime minister, who was Ibrahim Pasha, to a number of the remaining wealthy merchants and army men and F.in. On this topic, it spread from them to Europe, and the cases we are talking about appeared in the Netherlands and in other European countries. All of this tells us that the European peoples in the time of the power of the Ottoman Empire were very keen to imitate the Ottomans. Despite their defeat by the Ottomans, they continued to fight. The Ottomans, and even between them and the Ottomans, it means a very strong and hereditary hatred, but they used to imitate them. It was not very strange that you find it in every Turkish home. Among the homes of wealthy Europeans, there is a Turkish corner with Turkish furniture, and he extended to Turkey and Turkey's paintings until the Turks entered European literature, always meeting the European writers of this era. They always write about a character. His origin is Ottoman or Turkish, whether negatively or positively, but he is affected by the existence of this entity. Alongside it was a comprehensive imitation movement known in Europe for imitating the Turks, especially in France, to the point that the American historian we began talking about said that Europe had reached the so-called state of Turkish obsession. Turkish obsession means that everything must have a Turkish flavor. In France, in Poland, in the country where it is, or Austria, the country where the Ottoman Empire fought a long war. I quote you a sentence he said about Poland. Poland, of course, among the countries where the Ottoman Empire fought several battles, meaning several decades of years. The nobles began to wear Ottoman robes, ride Arabian horses, and some of them began to wear cafes that served coffee and wore what looked like loose Ottoman trousers made of brightly colored Harrods. About smoking a Turkish pipe and eating Turkish sweets. I mean, of course, this is something of the tradition, which means that it is very clear, very big, and strange. The truth is because this is contrary to the natures of Europeans, or the way of life of Europeans, but they were the glory of the Ottoman Empire. They did this like this. You do. Psychologically defeated countries. Of course, it hurts me a lot. I am saying this now while I see the situation of Muslims imitating the countries. The Western and Eastern worlds are very striking in matters of life, in matters of food and drink, in matters of clothing, in matters, even hairstyles, in very many matters of thee. One of the things that is possible is for hours until it remains denounced and reprehensible in Eastern circles, Arab circles, or Muslim circles. However, by imitating them for me, if they become the ones who have the upper hand, the weak imitates the strong, and the oppressed imitates the victor, and this is something that we need to review very greatly. In this episode, I drew attention to this great luxury that we saw in the Ottoman Empire was one of the reasons for the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, no one thinks that I am in this episode and I am speaking, that I am amazed by the greatness of the Ottoman Empire in spreading the 2,000 pillars of a state and in the corners of the world. After that, on the contrary, it is the spread of this extreme party and the competition of the rich for each other and some for acquisition and disperse the money. Buying expensive and precious flowers is a sacrifice of very many things so that you can have something like what custom means. This need was one of the reasons for the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, because luxury is always perishable, and the verses of the Quran contains many verses of the Quran and many verses of the Quran. One of the reasons why the Ottoman Empire fell after that, and also in another serious problem that appeared on the issue of childbirth in the Ottoman Empire. It was also one of the reasons for the collapse, if it created a kind of gap between the poor and the rich poor, when they saw the rich spending this money on entertainment things, and they could not find them to eat, drink, treat themselves, clothe themselves, or live in housing, meaning suitable for them. With their atmosphere, it means some kind of psychological disorder, and it leaves them vulnerable to falling into strife. It means anything from rebellious coups. On this system, it is possible to coordinate it with him, even if it is. I mean, this rebel is trivial. I mean, this is what happened in the Ottoman Empire. We said that it had the era of conquest, which began in the year 1718 to 1730. In the year 1730, a coup occurred. The Ottoman Empire had one named Patrona Khalil, and he was one of the army men, and he had a very simple personality. He did not have any background. Historically, the background made a coup possible, but public support was due to internal anger not addressed by the state. It takes into account the relationship between the rich and the poor, takes into account the existence of spending, which is spent by the president of the the state that is Sultan Ahmed III, or the prime minister that is Ibrahim Pasha, or someone else in this field. All of this had negative factors that affected the people. The conclusion of the episode is that the Ottoman Empire first has its money and has what it has, but it is a human experience. But we can never forget that it was a source of pride for Muslims. It also led to European populations imitating its culture. I am not saying that if I imitated it for a year or two, I would imitate it for several decades. Rather, it could be several centuries. The second very important need is that the crushing of countries intellectually and culturally is more severe than its crushing militarily and politically. When peoples find themselves imitating the countries they occupied, this is a sign that harbors danger. It is supposed that the nation retreats itself to this one. The third and last, the worst thing about following other cultures is that you follow them in something contrary to your religion. It is contrary to your belief, either by following the West in a certain law. It is a law that is contrary to the Islamic law, or objectionable to it in the Islamic law, such as drinking alcohol or wearing naked clothes for women, or such and such of things. Of course, the greatest disaster remains that at that time you will have sold the religion in this world, the one who said it through the enemy. We ask God Almighty to guide Muslims to the right path and to make them a sunnah.